At 7:02 on a Saturday morning, 12 stopped outside the entrance to Crestview Estates. Behind them waited two flatbed trailers, a mobile crane, four landscaping vehicles,
and a black limousine carrying Grant Halbrook, the developer who had spent 3 months trying to force me off my land. The trucks were supposed to pour the foundations for 16 new luxury villas before noon. Instead, they were parked beside a cedar toll house that had not existed the previous week, a white barrier arm stretched across the commercial lane. Residents with electronic passes continued through the second lane without stopping. A woman walking her dog waved to the attendant. A grocery delivery van displayed its permit and entered. Grant's construction convoy did not move. I was standing beside the toll house with a clipboard when he stepped out of his limousine. He wore a pale gray suit, polished shoes, and the expression of a man who believed every obstacle had been placed there by an employee he could fire. "What is this?" he asked. "A commercial access station. You cannot build a toll booth on Crestview Road. The county approved it on Tuesday." Grant looked past me at the idling trucks. "Open the gate. The required road impact deposit has not been paid." "What deposit?" "The one described in the notice delivered to Halbrook Development 30 days ago." He laughed once. It was not amusement. It was the sound he used when someone beneath him had misunderstood the order of things. "We own this road." "No," I said. "You use it." His site superintendent approached with a folder pressed against his chest. "Mr. Halbrook, the concrete drivers are charging standby time." Grant did not look away from me. "How much are you demanding?" "For today's convoy, $18,600. That includes the axle impact deposit, traffic control staffing, and inspection of the south culvert after the crane passes." "You expect me to pay you $18,000 to reach my own development?" "I expect a company using a private residential road for heavy construction to comply with the recorded access agreement." Grant stepped closer. "You are confused, Elias. This is not your road." I handed him a copy of the deed. He glanced at the first page, then he read it again. The legal description covered every paved section of Juniper Ridge Road from the county highway to the gates of Crestview Estates. The owner listed beneath it was Mercer Access Holdings, my company, behind Grant. The concrete continued turning inside 12 steel drums. Reporters had arrived to cover his groundbreaking ceremony. Residents stood near the gate holding phones. Grant lowered the document. "When did you buy it?" 3 weeks ago. "You bought an entire road to punish me." "No, I bought a road that was being damaged by people who refused to maintain it." He pointed toward the toll house. "This is extortion. Residents are passing without charge. Emergency services have unrestricted access. Regular deliveries are covered by the annual maintenance assessment. Your commercial construction convoy requires a permit." "You know what today is?" "Yes." Grant had invited investors, prospective buyers, and local reporters to watch him break ground on the largest expansion in Crestview's history. He had banners waiting inside, catered tables beside the clubhouse, and a prepared speech about controlled access and privately maintained infrastructure. What he did not have was permission to move heavy construction vehicles across the private road. I could have opened the toll station the following Monday. I did not. The 30-day notice period had expired at midnight. Grant received the same deadline as every contractor and commercial operator. I did not move it forward to embarrass him, and I did not delay it to protect him from ignoring it. His superintendent leaned toward him. "The first loads will be unusable in less than 90 minutes. Grant folded the deed. "You will regret this." "I have regretted several things," I said. "Keeping records has not been one of them. To understand how a 73-year-old orchard farmer came to own the only road leading into a neighborhood of multi-million-dollar homes, you have to understand that Grant Halbrook did not begin by threatening me. He began by offering to help. My name is Elias Mercer. For 41 years, my wife, Ada, and I lived on 17 acres beside Juniper Ridge. The land had belonged to my father and his brother before it belonged to me. Most of it was planted with pear and apple trees. A narrow creek marked the western boundary. Near the house stood a stone packing barn where Ada sold fruit preserves and fresh pies every autumn. When we married, only 12 houses stood beyond the orchard. By the time Ada died, Crestview Estates contained 34 properties behind stone walls and electronic gates. The people who lived there were not bad simply because they had money. Most wanted safe streets, quiet homes, and a clear view of the ridge. The problem was that Grant taught them to believe my orchard threatened all three. Grant had developed the newest section of Crestview and become president of its homeowners association before construction was complete. His company still owned 2 unfinished properties and the clubhouse parcel, giving him enough votes to control the board. The first time he came to my house, he carried a bottle of wine and an aerial photograph of my land. Ada had been gone for 11 months. Grant sat at my kitchen table and pointed toward a 3-acre strip along the northern boundary. My company would like to buy this section. The land contained 27 mature pear trees, our irrigation pond, and the stone barn where Ada had run the seasonal farm shop. What do you need it for? A secondary entrance to Crestview. The neighborhood had only one road connecting it to the county highway. Grant said a second gate would improve emergency access and raise every property value behind the ridge. The route he had drawn across the photograph passed directly through Ada's pear trees. I am not selling it. He smiled. I have not made an offer yet. The answer does not depend on the number. He placed an envelope beside the unopened bottle. Inside was an offer for $280,000. The county assessor valued those 3 acres at more than twice that amount, without considering what commercial access would be worth to Grant's development. Grant explained that the property was zoned agricultural. The barn needed repairs, and any developer would have to remove the trees. He spoke as though those facts thus reduced its value. To me, they were the value. The offer remains open for 14 days, he said. You can take it with you. He left the envelope on my table. I mailed it back the following morning. 2 weeks later, a county code inspector arrived at my farm shop. Someone had reported that I was operating an unlicensed commercial market. The inspector expected permanent signs, refrigeration equipment, and customers arriving every day. What he found was an empty wooden counter used 6 weekends each autumn under an agricultural exemption. He apologized and closed the complaint. 3 days later, animal control inspected my beehives. Then the fire marshal received a report that I was storing dangerous fuel inside the packing barn. The dangerous fuel consisted of 2 gallons of chainsaw mixture and a locked metal can for my orchard tractor. Each inspection ended the same way: no serious violation, no enforcement action. But every visit required records, explanations, and hours of my time. Every government vehicle parked beside my orchard could be photographed from Crestview Road. By the end of the month, residents had begun asking whether the county intended to shut me down. Grant returned on a Thursday afternoon. This time, he brought no wine. I hear you are having compliance problems. I have received complaints. That is not the same thing. Older agricultural properties often become difficult to maintain. My trees have not filed any complaints. He placed another offer on my workbench, $240,000, $40,000 less than the first. The inspections increased development risk, he said. The inspections found nothing. They revealed an aging property with an uncertain future. The future use is an orchard. Grant looked through the barn doorway toward the pear rows. You are 73, Elias. Yes. Your daughter lives 2 counties away. You have no son working the property. At some point, sentiment becomes a maintenance burden. My daughter, Claire, was a public school principal. She had never wanted to become a farmer, and I had never asked her to surrender her own life to prove she loved me. Grant knew that because Ada had once spoken with his wife at a community fundraiser, he was not only studying the property. He was studying the places where he believed I stood alone. I am not selling. He returned the offer to his briefcase. Then you should prepare for the land to be evaluated according to its actual condition. What does that mean? He walked out without answering, The first drainage problem appeared after the next storm. Water had always moved downhill from Crestview toward the orchard, but the original development plans directed it into 2 retention basins. After Grant began grading land for the new villas, muddy water crossed my northern boundary and rushed between the pear rows. It carried gravel, fragments of construction plastic, and enough sediment to bury 2 irrigation valves. 6 young trees leaned by the following morning. I photographed the damage before touching a shovel. Grant's site superintendent blamed an unusually severe storm. The county engineer reviewed the rainfall records. The storm had been ordinary. He also found that a temporary drainage channel on Grant's construction parcel had been cut toward my property instead of toward the approved basin. The county ordered Halbrook Development to correct it. Grant complied. Then his company sent me an invoice for $9,400. The letter claimed a clogged ditch on my orchard had caused water to back up onto Crestview property. My attorney, Dana Wu, responded with the county engineer's findings. Grant withdrew the invoice without explanation. Dana had represented Ada and me when we created the Mercer Orchard Trust. She was 46, precise, and unimpressed by expensive letterhead. "Do not respond to him directly anymore," she said. "I can still answer my own door." "You can, but every conversation gives him another sentence to reinterpret." She asked me to document every offer, complaint, inspection, drainage event, and contact from anyone connected to Crestview. I had kept farm records since the year Ada and I bought our first tractor. Creating another file did not trouble me. The first physical act of interference occurred in May. 3 wooden survey stakes along the northern boundary had been removed and placed several feet inside my orchard. The buried metal markers had not moved. Only the visible stakes were false. Had I accepted them as accurate, a strip of my land nearly 22 feet wide would have appeared to belong to Crestview. I called Martin Bell, an independent surveyor with no connection to Grant's company. Martin located the original pins and replaced the false stakes with bright orange posts. He also found fresh tire impressions beside the boundary. The tread pattern matched the narrow utility vehicles used by Grant's landscaping contractor. That did not prove who moved the stakes. It proved only that one of the contractor's vehicles had been close enough to do it. Dana sent preservation notices to Halbrook Development and the landscaping company, requesting their GPS logs, employee schedules, and work orders for the relevant dates. Grant called me that evening. "You hired an attorney over wooden sticks?" "I hired a surveyor over a property boundary. You are creating hostility with your neighbors." "My neighbors did not move the markers." "You have no proof anyone moved them intentionally. Then preserving the records should not worry you." His voice became quieter. "You think paperwork makes you powerful? No, it makes memory less convenient to change." The landscaping company replied the next morning. Its GPS data, it claimed, had been automatically deleted after 7 days. Dana's preservation notice had arrived on the 6th. She read the response and placed it in the file. Neither of us called Grant. 6 days later, someone drove a steel rod through the buried irrigation pipe supplying my northern pear rows. By the time I discovered the leak, 27 trees had gone without water through the hottest week of the year. 5 young trees were already dead. The break was too clean to be caused by age. The pipe had not failed. It had been punctured. I stood beside the open trench while Dana photographed the hole. Beyond the cedar trees, I could hear construction equipment operating inside Crestview. Dana lowered the camera. The inspections could have been harassment. The drainage could have been negligence. The survey stakes could have been a contractor's mistake. She pointed toward the damaged pipe. This was deliberate. That afternoon, a courier delivered Grant's third offer. $195,000. Attached to it was an appraisal describing my orchard as distressed agricultural property, suffering from drainage failure, damaged irrigation infrastructure, and declining tree health. The photographs in the appraisal showed the flooded rows, the broken pipe, and the 5 dead trees. Every condition Grant used to lower the price had appeared after I refused to sell. For the first time, I understood that Grant was not waiting for my land to lose value. He was trying to manufacture the loss himself. Dana advised me to install cameras before repairing the irrigation line. We mounted one above the packing barn, another near the northern boundary, and two small wildlife cameras between the cedar trees. None faced Crestview homes. They recorded only my land and the points where someone could enter it. Grant's next move did not happen at night. He made it in front of 50 residents beneath the chandeliers of the Crestview clubhouse. The Homeowners Association had scheduled a meeting to discuss what Grant called the neighborhood's emergency access crisis. I attended because the proposed second road still crossed my orchard. On the screen behind him, my 17 acres appeared as a brown shape labeled unimproved parcel, not Mercer Orchard, not agricultural land, not the property where Ada and I had raised our daughter, an unimproved parcel. Grant stood beside the map in a dark suit and told the residents that Crestview depended on a single aging road. If a wildfire, flood, or major accident blocked it, 34 households could be trapped. That concern was not invented. Juniper Ridge Road was the only direct route to the county highway. Emergency planners had recommended a secondary exit years earlier. What Grant did not explain was that his proposed road was wider than any emergency lane needed to be. It included utility corridors, decorative lighting, and a landscaped entrance large enough to serve the 16 villas he planned to build. He was presenting commercial expansion as public safety. The adjacent landowner has rejected every reasonable proposal, Grant said. Unfortunately, one person's attachment to an underused property may affect the security of an entire community. He did not use my name. He did not need to. A man in the second row asked whether the county could condemn my land. Grant turned toward the association's attorney. If public necessity is established, several legal options may become available. Dana had already spoken with the county. No condemnation request existed. No public agency had approved Grant's route. Crestview was a private gated development, and Halbrook Development would receive the largest financial benefit from the second entrance. I raised my hand. Grant looked at me as if he had not expected me to attend. "The county has not proposed taking my land," I said, "and the route shown on that map is not limited to emergency access." Grant rested both hands on the podium. "Elias, no one is questioning your emotional connection to the orchard." He used my first name in the careful tone adults use when they want a room to see another person as confused. "This is about families whose safety currently depends on one road. Then maintain the road you already use." Several residents looked toward one another. A woman near the aisle asked whether Crestview owned Juniper Ridge Road. Grant answered quickly. "The association possesses permanent access rights." That was not the question. I said. His expression tightened. The woman asked again, "Does the association own the road?" Grant looked toward the attorney. "The ownership structure is historical. It has no practical effect on residential access. Permanent access rights, historical ownership, no practical effect." He had answered without saying yes. At the time, I did not understand why that mattered. I only remembered the wording. After the meeting, two residents approached me in the parking lot. Evelyn Price was a retired nurse who had lived in the oldest Crestview section for 22 years. Daniel Cho was an accountant whose property bordered Juniper Ridge Road. Evelyn apologized for the way Grant had spoken. "He has been telling people you want the association to increase its offer," she said. "I am not negotiating. He also said your insurance may lapse because of the orchard damage. My insurance is current." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Grant told us the association could become liable if one of your cedar trees fell onto the road. The trees are inspected twice a year." "Has he asked for the reports?" "No." Daniel lowered his voice. "He has proposed a special assessment for a second entrance, $12,000 per property." That explained why Grant needed the residents frightened. If the association paid part of the road cost, Halbrook Development could obtain commercial access through my land while shifting much of the expense to homeowners. He said the assessment would become unnecessary if you sold voluntarily. Evelyn added. Grant was creating a simple story. The road was dangerous, the orchard was failing, the old owner was unreasonable. Every problem would disappear if I accepted his price. The cameras recorded someone entering my property 4 nights later. At 2:13 in the morning, a narrow utility vehicle stopped beside the northern cedar line. A man wearing a hood stepped out, walked toward the irrigation trench, and examined the newly repaired pipe. He did not damage it. The security lights from my barn activated, and he returned to the vehicle. The camera could not identify his face. It did capture the side of the machine. A partial company logo appeared beneath a layer of mud. Dana enlarged the image. The vehicle belonged to Green Line Landscape Services, the same contractor whose tire tracks Martin had found near the moved survey stakes. Dana sent another preservation notice. This time, Green Line responded through an attorney. The company claimed one of its vehicles had been stolen for approximately 3 hours that night. No police report had been filed because the machine had returned undamaged. Dana read the letter at my kitchen table. They expect us to believe someone stole a utility cart, drove it directly to your damaged irrigation line, inspected the repair, and returned it before breakfast. Can we prove otherwise? Not yet. She filed the response beside the deleted GPS records. Grant's fourth offer arrived the following week, $170,000, less than 1/3 of the assessed value. The letter stated that mounting disputes, infrastructure failures, and neighborhood opposition had made the orchard difficult to sell to any other buyer. It gave me 7 days to accept. Claire came down after receiving a copy from Dana. She stood at my kitchen counter reading the earlier offers in order: $280,000, $240,000, $195,000, $170,000. He lowers the price every time something happens to the property, she said. Yes, and he is causing at least some of those things. We can show the drainage came from his site. We cannot yet prove who damaged the pipe. Claire looked toward Ada's photograph. Why not sell him a smaller strip somewhere else? Because he does not want a smaller strip. He wants control of the northern boundary and enough frontage to expand his development. Then sell at the real value. He has never offered the real value. What if he does? I look through the window toward the pear rows. If I tell him destruction increases the chance I will sell, every tree becomes part of his negotiation. Claire folded the offer. I am afraid this will keep getting worse. So am I. It was the first time I admitted it. Fear did not mean Grant was right. It meant I needed more than endurance. That evening, I opened Ada's old filing cabinet looking for the original drainage plans. She had organized our records by subject, year, and property line. Near the bottom was a faded folder marked Ridge Access, 1978. Inside was a survey map showing the original 12 Crestview lots, the county highway, my father's orchard, and the narrow private road connecting them. Juniper Ridge Road, a handwritten note appeared along the margin in my father's ink. Red alder keeps title. Owners receive residential passage only. Expansion traffic requires separate agreement. I called Dana before finishing the folder. She ordered a complete title search the next morning. 2 days later, she returned carrying 26 pages of deeds, easements, tax notices, and corporate records. She spread them across my dining table. Grant told the truth about one thing, she said. Crestview has permanent residential access. And the road, they do not own it. The legal owner was Red Alder Access Company, a corporation formed by the brothers who built Crestview's first 12 homes. Each homeowner held an easement allowing ordinary residential passage. The association contributed toward maintenance. But the agreement treated commercial development differently. Heavy construction traffic, subdivision expansion, utility excavation, and any substantial increase in road use required written permission from the road owner. That owner could charge reasonable impact fees and demand security for repairs. Who owns Red Alder now? I asked. Dana turned to the final page. Margaret Bellamy, 81 years old. Her husband inherited it from one of the original developers. Red Alder had stopped maintaining the road after Grant's association disputed 3 years of invoices. The company owed property taxes, legal fees, and money to a paving contractor. A tax foreclosure sale was scheduled in 45 days. I looked again at the map. Grant needed my orchard to build a second entrance, but every truck, crane, and construction crew serving his current development had to cross a road his company did not own. Does Grant know Red Alder is in foreclosure? He should. The association received every delinquency notice because its easement could be affected. Has he tried to buy it? Dana opened another document. Halbrook Development submitted an offer 6 months ago. How much? $65,000. The road's unpaid obligations exceeded $80,000. Margaret Bellamy had rejected the offer. Grant had been waiting for the tax sale, expecting to acquire the road after Red Alder collapsed. I studied the legal description. For months, he had been damaging my land because he believed I was the only obstacle between him and a second entrance. He had overlooked the road beneath his own tires. What would it cost to save Red Alder? I asked. Dana watched me carefully. Pay the taxes, settle the contractor lien, purchase Margaret's shares, and establish a proper maintenance reserve. How much? Approximately $140,000. Less than half of Grant's first offer for my orchard. Dana closed the title report. Elias, buying the road cannot be a trick. Residential access is protected. You cannot lock people inside Crestview or charge whatever you want because you dislike Grant. I would not. You would inherit duties as well as rights. Maintenance, emergency access, insurance, drainage, snow removal, and enforcement must all be handled consistently. Then we handle them consistently. She studied me for several seconds. What exactly are you considering? I placed my father's map beside Grant's latest offer. I am considering buying the one piece of land Grant assumed no one would protect. Grant looked from his superintendent to Dana. You filed this today? The complaint was accepted at 8:41. Dana said, you knew the lender would see it. We sent the filing to every party with a recorded financial interest in the development, as required. Grant turned toward me. You planned all of this. I documented what happened. You bought the road, opened a toll station, and filed a lawsuit on the morning of my launch. The road notices were sent 30 days ago. The lawsuit followed months of damage to my property. Behind him, one of the concrete drivers climbed out of his cab. We need a decision, the driver said. These loads are reaching their limit. Grant's superintendent spoke quietly. Without the deposit and insurance confirmation, we cannot move through the gate. Grant stared at the barrier arm. For several seconds, I thought he might order the drivers forward anyway. The commercial lane had cameras, reinforced posts, and a county-approved traffic control officer standing beside the toll house. More importantly, Grant's own attorney had already told him the easement did not authorize the convoy. He could no longer pretend the rule did not exist. Turn them around, he said. The first truck reversed slowly toward the highway. One by one, the others followed. The crane left last. Its driver raised 2 fingers toward the attendant as he passed. Not in support of me or Grant, but in acknowledgement that the morning's argument was not his responsibility. Grant remained beside the empty lane. The catered tables inside Crestview were still covered with white cloths. A silver shovel stood in a box of ceremonial soil. The banner behind it promised, "The future of Crestview begins today." No foundation was poured, no ground was broken. The reporters asked Grant whether Halbrook Development was insolvent. He said the project had encountered a temporary access disagreement caused by a hostile landowner. Dana stepped between the microphones and me before I could respond. "Mr. Mercer will not try this case at a gate," she said. That became our only public statement. By noon, the images had spread through the county. Most headlines focused on the toll house and the stopped concrete trucks. Some described me as an old farmer who had outmaneuvered a luxury developer. Others called the dispute a revenge story. They were easier stories to publish than the truth. The road had not allowed me to seize Grant's property. It had not erased his permits, cancelled his development rights, or transferred his money to me. It had only required him to follow an agreement he had expected everyone else to ignore. The more serious consequences came from the civil case. Grant's construction lender appointed an independent monitor. Until the monitor reviewed the drainage violations, access rights, and allegations of property interference, Halbrook Development could not draw additional funds. Grant could still pay the road impact deposit from another lawful source. He did not. Over the next 2 weeks, work stopped on the villa parcel. Subcontractors filed notices for unpaid invoices. 2 investors withdrew from the project. The county suspended approval of the next building phase until Grant corrected several erosion control deficiencies identified during the lender's inspection. None of those actions came from me. My lawsuit had forced people already involved in the project to examine what they had chosen not to examine before. Greenline Landscape Services was the first company to cooperate. Its owner contacted Dana after learning that Grant's lender had requested internal records. The claim that a utility vehicle had been stolen was false. A Greenline supervisor had taken it to my boundary under instructions from Grant's site superintendent. He had been told to inspect the repaired irrigation line and report whether the damage had reduced water flow to the northern trees. The supervisor denied puncturing the pipe. But his phone contained photographs taken before the break was discovered. One image showed a steel landscaping spike lying beside the exposed irrigation route. Another message from the site superintendent read, "If the north rows decline, the appraisal changes. Do not put anything in the work log." Grant's name did not appear in that message. Dana warned me not to claim more than the evidence proved. The superintendent could have acted independently. Greenline could have known more than it admitted. Grant could argue that he had only requested legitimate site inspections. Then investigators recovered his email to the superintendent, "Need visible deterioration before Mercer's next valuation." Drainage alone is not enough. Grant had not written, "Damage the pipe." He had written enough. The county sheriff referred the matter to the district attorney for review. I did not ask what charges might follow. Dana reminded me that the purpose of our civil case was to stop the interference, repair the orchard, and recover measurable losses. The criminal decision belonged to someone else. Grant's attorney requested a settlement meeting. It took place in a neutral conference room at the County Mediation Center. Grant arrived without the gray suit. He wore a blue shirt with the sleeves buttoned tightly at his wrists. His attorney carried 3 binders. Dana brought one. Grant's opening proposal required me to dismiss the case, reduce all commercial road charges, and grant Halbrook Development a permanent construction easement through the orchard. In return, he offered to pay for the dead trees. Dana closed the proposal. "We are finished." Grant looked at me. "You are willing to destroy an entire project over 5 trees? The project is not on trial for killing trees." "You know what I mean." "Yes, 5 trees could be replaced." The belief that he could damage property until its owner became easier to control could not. The mediator asked us to remain. By late afternoon, the discussion changed. Halbrook Development agreed to pay for the drainage repairs, irrigation replacement, independent soil testing, lost crop production, survey costs, and attorney's fees. It also agreed to a permanent injunction prohibiting Grant, his employees, and his contractors from entering the orchard without written permission. The second entrance was removed from the development plan. Grant refused to admit personal responsibility for puncturing the irrigation line. I did not require an admission the evidence could not yet prove. The settlement stated that Halbrook Development accepted responsibility for the actions of its contractors and supervisors connected to the documented interference. The road issue remained separate. Grant would receive no discount. If his company wanted commercial access, it would submit the same documents and pay the same calculated costs as any other developer. He signed shortly after 6. Before leaving, he stopped beside my chair. "You could have sold 3 acres and avoided all of this. You could have offered a fair price and accepted no." His face tightened. "This is not over. It is over when you stop entering my land." 3 weeks later, Crestview's homeowners held a special election. Daniel Cho had reviewed the association's finances after the road notices arrived. He discovered that Grant's board had collected residential road assessments for 3 years but had not forwarded the full amounts to Red Alder. Some of the money had been used for clubhouse renovations and marketing events connected to the new villas. That explained why Margaret Bellamy's company had been unable to maintain the road. The residents removed Grant as association president. Evelyn Price became interim chair. Her first letter to Mercer Access did not challenge the road ownership. It requested a meeting about repairs. We met in the toll house. The residents wanted predictable assessments, transparent accounts, and representation in long-term maintenance decisions. They were reasonable requests. Mercer Access created a road advisory council with 3 resident representatives, 1 independent engineer, and 1 company representative. Annual statements would show every dollar collected and every repair funded. The Cedar Toll House remained, but the word toll disappeared from the sign. It became the Juniper Ridge Access Station. Most residents passed automatically. Commercial operators used scheduled permits. Emergency vehicles retained unrestricted entry. When resurfacing began, the road remained open 1 lane at a time so no household became trapped. Grant eventually found new financing for a smaller project. He built 6 villas instead of 16. His company paid the road impact deposit before the first truck arrived. I stood near the orchard fence that morning as the convoy passed. Grant sat inside a dark vehicle. He did not look toward me. I did not stop him. The permits were valid. The insurance was current. The deposit had been paid. Justice that applies only to an enemy is not justice. It is permission wearing a better suit. The pear rows recovered slowly. We replaced the 5 dead trees with young stock from the same nursery Ada and I had used 30 years earlier. Claire helped plant the first one. She pressed soil around the roots, then looked toward the new access station. Are you keeping the road forever? No. What will happen to it? I had spent the previous month working with Dana on that answer. Mercer Access would eventually transfer the road into a non-profit stewardship trust. Crestview residents would hold seats on its board, but no developer or homeowners association could control it alone. Commercial fees would fund repairs and emergency reserves. The road would not become another weapon waiting for a different owner. And the orchard? Claire asked. The orchard goes into a conservation easement. That meant it could remain agricultural land even after I was gone. Claire would not be forced to farm it. The trust could lease the trees and barn to younger growers, horticulture students, or a cooperative. Ada's shop would become a seasonal teaching kitchen. The northern 3 acres would never become an entrance road. Claire leaned against her shovel. You decided all of this without telling me. I was waiting until the documents were ready. She smiled. You really do think paperwork is powerful? No, I said. It is only useful when people keep their word. The following autumn, the orchard opened for harvest weekend. Evelyn came from Crestview with her grandchildren. Daniel volunteered at the cider press. Margaret Bellamy attended in a wheelchair and asked to be taken along the road her family had once owned. Near the packing barn stood 5 young pear trees. They were too small to produce fruit. Ada used to say that planting a tree was an agreement with someone you might never meet. You protected the roots, accepted that growth took time, and trusted another person to stand in the shade. Grant Halbrook believed ownership meant having enough power to make someone leave. He was wrong. Ownership meant accepting responsibility for what remained after you did.